Okay, for today's project, we're going to learn Chapter 5, which is Transforming Artwork. And then we're going to start on Chapter 6. We're not going to get through it. We're going to finish it up next week and have some more projects with it next week. So Chapter 5 in our book is called Transforming Artwork. We're going to learn more about artboards. So we've been seeing them. We know that they exist. We're going to learn how we can rearrange them, rename them, align things on the smartboard. And then we're also going to learn about positioning objects very precisely. We're going to learn about scale, rotate, reflect, and shear, and free transform, which is ironic because that's what we were doing yesterday in Photoshop also, kind of. And we're going to work with the puppet warp tool, which is really quite cool. So in Illustrator, navigate to wherever you have your Illustrator book files and go into Lesson 5. Wow, what a mess this is. And let's get our start file opened up. And let's do a fit all in window. So Command Option 0, and we see that we have one artboard. From there, zoom out. So Command minus or use the zoom tool. And I want you to notice that you have some other things floating around just in your workspace. Those are not on artboards. If we were to take this big blue piece in the middle that's on an artboard and select it, let me just see. We can see that there is an artboard behind there, whereas everything else is just sitting on our workspace. If we go down to the bottom lower left, we'll see that indeed there's only one artboard. We're not seeing many. So these other things are just pieces of art that are sitting around on our artboard. Let's start by saving this with your name. So File, Save As, and give it your name and then Infographic. And save it in that Lesson 5 folder. Click on the selection tool in the toolbar, whether you've picked something or not, it doesn't matter much. Once you have that selected in your properties panel, it says up at the top, no selection, meaning nothing is being targeted right now, so it's just giving us information about the overall file. So right now we can see that this document is being measured in pixels, and there's one artboard. And we have some other options that we can turn on, our rulers and grids, our guides, and the snap to options. From here, I want you to click on the Edit Artboards button over here, and that does two things. It changed the information. We're in the Edit Artboard panel over here now, so we see information about our artboard, what its name is, what size it is, and then where it's physically located on the X and Y coordinates. And then there's also an exit button at the top right. So you can, when you hit that, you back out of this special extra window. But what it also did is go over and look at your toolbar. It highlighted a new tool. Way down towards the bottom, the artboard tool itself is now highlighted. All right, let's move our pointer off to the right of this existing artboard. And we're going to click and drag a new artboard that's approximately 800 by 800 pixels. And you should have your tooltips showing. That little gray box should give you an approximate. So just get it kind of close to 800 by 800. After you've drawn that out and let go of your cursor, it's going to label it O2, Artboard 2. And you can tell that it's selected because of the dotted lines around it and the bounding box around it. The properties for Artboard 2 are now showing up here. It is 800 pixels by 809.36 in my case. I couldn't draw it out perfectly. So here's where you can make it perfect. In the Properties panel, we're actually going to change one of those, but make sure it's perfectly 800 pixels, and then hit Tab to go down to the height by 850, and hit Tab. If you hit Tab, it jumps to the next dialog box, and in this case, it's where you get a chance to name it. We're going to name this artboard Back, like the back of a card. and then hit return. Next thing we're going to do is create another artboard that's the exact same size. All right. Over here in the Properties panel, to the right of where you just named this one, you named it back, there's that sheet of paper with the corner turned up that always means new something, and it says new artboard. We're going to click on that, and that's going to make us a new artboard exactly the same size, and it placed it right next to the one that we did. Let's change the name of Artboard 3 to be Front. So we now have 3 total artboards. We can see that down at our lower left corner. We have 1 that doesn't have a name, we have 2 that's called Back, and we have 3 that's called Front right now. After you create your artboards, you can edit them or delete them using a variety of methods. We can use the Artboard tool, which is this tool in our toolbar, tool menu. What's that called? Toolbar. That's the word I was looking for. Holy moly. We can use that. We can use different menu commands up at the top. We can use our Properties panel to edit and delete them, and an Artboards panel, which we'll pull up in a minute. Do a View Fit All in window, so Command Option 0. That shows us our 3 artboards. Remember, the stuff underneath is extra stuff, so it fits the 3 artboards in our current view. Zoom out a little bit so that you can see the miscellaneous work below. Make sure that we're in the Artboard editing tool, so that tool at the bottom, and we're going to drag the artboard named Front, the one that we just made, over to the left of the original artboard. So we're going to put it over here. So now we have a front, we have this middle big panel, and we have a back panel. In our Properties panel over here at the right, we're still in this artboard editing mode because we still see the exit button up here. There's some information here. The preset would let us change it to a different size if we wanted to. So maybe what we set up originally we're not happy with, and we know that, you know, shoot, this artboard should have been an iPad Pro size. We could click on that, but right now it's in custom because it's specifically the dimensions that we told it. So we could change it there. Let's click to select the larger middle artboard that has all the art on it and fit that in the window. So just Command 0, so we see that one up close. And if you look down at the bottom of the artboard, do you notice that there's a white space down here? Our artboard itself is bigger than the artwork. So we're going to drag that bounding handle in the middle, and we're going to pull it up until it snaps to the bottom of the artwork. Here's something that I want to start stressing right now. In Illustrator, we make our artboards the exact size of our trimmed final product. So when we make a postcard artboard, and the postcard is going to be 4 inches by 6 inches, that's the size of our artboard. And then remember, we put that bleed around it. We did that one time where we had 1/8 of an inch extra that the color went off. What we don't do is start with, and we kind of do this because it's the way we physically see things. What we don't do is start with an 8.5 by 11 US letter artboard and then put our art in the middle and have all this white around it, which I saw with a lot of you. A lot of you made a normal paper size artboard, and that's fine because we haven't talked about it yet. And then your actual art exists somewhere on it like a sheet of paper like this. That's normal behavior because that's how we picture it, but that's not how Illustrator works. So if I in the future start opening up your artboards and you did, let's say, a LCD screen mock-up, like what an app is going to look like on a big LCD screen, and you printed it on, well, how it prints doesn't matter, but on the screen when I open it, if it's designed on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and your graphic is in the middle of it, that's not right. Okay, we set up our artboard to be truly the size of the thing that prints. Make sense? So on all of your phone artboards, why don't you all open up your phone that you just did? Do a file open and grab your phone. And tell me if you see a bunch of white around the edges from the artboard. I bet you probably will. And what you want to do is edit the artboard down to that size. Now if you have rounded edges, you can't match that. And yours, I'm looking at yours right now, you have a double layout, so that's a little tricky too. But what we can do is make our artboard fit it better. So let me just see, recent, file, open recent. Okay, so this is a good example. 2 artboards, probably, I'm guessing she was building stuff on artboard 2 and dragged it over. Maybe, maybe not. But we're going to learn how to delete the artboard. So we'll get to that in a minute. But on the artboard that you have, just using this artboard tool, take these bounding boxes and shrink them in to your actual artwork. Yes, you're going to have a little white space on the rounded corner, but in general, this is what your artboard should look like. So if you start wrong, don't worry. You can always make it work correctly. So that is what an artboard should actually look like. It shouldn't have all that white space around it. Trim it down as tight as you can, okay? All right, you can close that out and go back to the project that we're working on. I just wanted to demo that. So what we just did now was we took this piece that was on an artboard that was slightly too tall, and we shrunk the artboard up to match the true size that we wanted it to be. Remember, everything that's inside of the boundaries of the artboard is what actually prints. If it's outside the boundaries of the artboard, it does not print. All right, so we're done shrinking up this artboard. So in the Properties panel, we can click on that Exit button to get out of the artboard properties and to go back to our just regular properties. By hitting that Exit button, we also automatically switch back to our Selection tool. Notice we're no longer in the Artboard tool. All right, do a Command Option 0 to fit all 3 artboards in our window. And we're going to align them. As you can see that they're kind of not all in a straight line depending on how you drew them and how you drag them out. So we're going to align them. To do that, we need to switch back to the Artboard tool. So at the bottom of your toolbar, grab the Artboard tool again. And we're going to click on this far left one that we called number 3 front. And then we're going to hold down the Shift key and we're going to select the other 2 artboards. So Artboard 1 and Artboard 2 back. And by shift clicking on them, all 3 are selected and the bounding box goes around all 3 of them. With all 3 of them aligned in our Properties panel, we're going to go over here to our Alignment buttons, and we're going to choose the Vertical Align Center, which is the second to the last one. So that brought them all down to being in the same straight line. All right. By default, artboards are assigned a number and a name, Artboard 1, Artboard 2, as we've seen. We're going to select this middle artboard right now, and we're going to go over here to our Artboard Properties panel, and we're going to see that this is one that was just named generically, Artboard 1. We want to change that, and we want to call this Inside. And then say OK. There's another floating panel that we can look at. So we have a layers panel. You guys have seen we have color swatch panels. We have all different panels that float around. And all of those options live here in the window drop-down box. So these all are different panels that we could have showing at any given time. There is one called Artboards. So grab that one to activate it or click on it, and then you can move it over here. You can nest it, the tab over here if you wanted to. You can leave it free floating. This is a quick way to look at artboards, and if you have a bunch of them, this is a lot faster than going down to the bottom left of our window and clicking on the artboard here. Here we can actually see it, we can see the name of it, and we can see other details that we'll find out about. So this is your artboard panel. We can reorder them, we can rename them, we can add and delete artboards from here. Let's just do a file save to save our work at this point. And we're going to learn about how we can navigate between these artboards and reorder them. All right, where did you go? Artboard. The artboards that you see appear in order of how they were made. So artboard 1, this big one, was made with the file, so that's the first artboard. Then we drew the one on the right, then we drew the one on the left. So that's the order that they're made, just like layers and everything. It's the stacking order of how they're ordered. But we can change them. Over in our artboard panel, we're going to double click the number 2 that is to the left of the word back. And that by double clicking on the number, it activates that artboard and fits it to your screen. It assumes you want to work on that one, and it makes that one fit the whole screen. We're going to take this word front artboard, and we're going to drag it up to the top till we get the highlight above the word inside. So we just dragged it from the bottom of the artboard stack up to the top.
Yeah, something weird going on.
Okay. We got all sorts of stuff. Double click on the number 5. Double click on the number 1. How would you double name them? That is bizarre. Delete artboard 1, which we're going to do next. You can probably figure it out.
I think that's the one that's showing all those graphics that you started on. That's why we need to think it inside.
Well, you didn't. It looks to me like you didn't rename it. You made a whole new one. So delete that one if you want, and then delete that one, and then double click on the word artboard 1 and name that inside. Okay, let's see, where'd we go? So we dragged the word front up to the top of the stack. Now if we look at, I'm just going to zoom out. There we go. Nothing's different. I still have my front artboard over here on the left, my inside in the middle, and the one on the back. But the way that they're stacked's not the right word. The way that they're listed in this artboard panel now matches what we see. Front, inside, back. So we just moved this to make it match what we visually see, and also to help us when we use the left and right arrows down at the bottom here. When we want to go from artboard to artboard, forward and backwards, it's going to go in the order we expect it to do. Number 1 is the first one on our far left side, and if we arrow over to the right, we expect to see number 2, and if we arrow over again, we expect to see the back. So you can rearrange these so that they match the vision that you see, and you're not jumping all over. It's not a big deal, but you can do that. All right. Let's go to the double click if you aren't looking at the front artboard. Let's click on that one. And then let's exit out of the properties panel over here on the right. And in the plain properties panel, we do see a way to navigate artboards as well with nothing selected. It says no selection, meaning I've got nothing highlighted on my screen. And then down a little further where it says artboard 1, I have my right and left arrows here as well. So I don't have to necessarily go down to the bottom left of the document window completely. We're done with the Artboards panel. We're going to close that out with the X. And we're going to talk about rulers and guides, very much like Photoshop. And they can appear on the top and the left-hand side. They can be in inches, pixels, points, whatever, lots of different measurements. And they can help you with measuring. Now, if we look at the whole view, if I had a ruler set up, and you guys know that typically 0 is at the far left and the top, that's where 0 shows up. So measuring this one might start out at 1 inch, this one might start out at 7 inches, and this one might start at 15 inches. That can be okay when you want to deal with everything all together in one big ruler situation, but often you want the rulers to snap to the individual artboard that you're working on so that you can measure that artboard. So there's two different kinds of rulers. Artboard rulers, the ones that pertain to the single artboard, and then global, that's the one that would cover all of these as we see them in this one view. All right, by default, rulers are set to be artboard rulers, which makes sense. When we're working on a particular artboard, we want to see the ruler specific to that one. So the origin point is the upper left corner. Fit everything in the window if you haven't already, so Command Option 0. With nothing selected, we're going to come over here at our right-hand side in the Properties panel and in the Rulers and Grids. We're going to click on that first icon that says Click to Show Rulers. Notice right now Artboard 2 is the one that's active for me, and my 0 point is right here. If I scroll up so that it matches up, you can see, ooh, too far. Come on. You can see that the 0 point is at the top left corner of both rulers. If I go to Artboard 3, notice that the 0 point, because I'm only on Artboard 3, it's active at the top left corner. Same thing for Artboard 1. The 0 point goes to the top left corner. Click to select the artboard at the top left. Come on. Oh. Click to select with your artboard tool this top left artboard. So 01 front. And when we switch back to our selection tool and we see that Artboard 1 is the active artboard over here in the Properties panel, it's very hard to see, but there is a thin black line around the active artboard, whereas the others have more of a bluish line. So you can tell that an artboard is active by this very thin, subtle black outline. You can better tell over here in the Properties panel where it says Artboard 1, or down here at the bottom left where it says number 1. All right, Artboard 1, fit it in the window, Command 0, so we can see all of Artboard 1. And we're going to create a guide on this active artboard. So just like we did in Photoshop yesterday, where we click and drag down from the rulers to make that aqua looking line, that's a guideline for us. So position your cursor in the top ruler, click and drag down, and when it's at 600 pixels, you'll see that over on the left-hand side ruler. When you get to where you think 600 pixels is, let go. And that'll put in a guideline for you at what we think is 600. The guide is still selected. We can tell that because it's still got that tealish color. And we can see if it wasn't exactly at the coordinate of 600, we can go over to our Properties panel, and where the Y coordinate is, I'm at 601, pretty close, but I can change that exactly to be 600 pixels. If you hit return after you type in that exact measurement, our guide changes, it's deselected, and it becomes well, it did for a second. Now I'm back into guide view. It became the color of the layer that we're on, which happened to be blue. Before we move on, we're going to change our measurement up in the Properties panel. So we're working in pixels right now. We're going to switch to inches. But notice all the options that you have. So switch your measurement to be inches. And do a file save. The other thing that you can do is you can tell it where you want the ruler origin point to be. So by default, the 0 point is at the top left corner of your active artboard. What we want to do, and make sure that you have enough of a zoom out that you can see your whole artboard and that you can see the top of the rulers, but you want to see your whole artboard. There we go. Oh boy, my mouse is funky. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to go to the top of the rulers where they intersect, and at that very top corner where the rulers intersect, there's a black square that has 2 lines in it. We're going to click on that, and we're going to drag it to the lower left corner of this existing artboard. So we're taking our 0 point, and we're going to move it down here to the lower left corner of our artboard where it says intersect. When we let go, we now see that the 0 point is here. It's still where it is on the left to right point. That didn't change, but the 0 point is now way down here at the bottom corner, and we're measuring going up. So from the bottom left corner, we go up 1 inch, 2 inch, up all the way 12 inches to the top. Get it? Or no? So it's this area right here where the 2 rulers intersect. That's your point of origin. Click on that and drag it down to this lower left corner and then let go. Lower left corner of the artboard. That's going to put your point of origin down there. Then take your selection tool. We're going to move our pointer over this guide and click to select it. And we're going to look over in our properties panel. And we now see, because we moved our point of origin, instead of saying it's at 600 pixels or whatever it said, it now says that we're at a negative, for me, 3.472 inches. It's measuring it relative to our new ruler. So we're going to change the Y value here. Yep.
How do you change it to inches?
In the window before. Deselect your, click anywhere to deselect, and then change it to your inches.
Oh.
Yeah. And now you have to select that guideline again to do what we're doing. With that guide selected, we're going to intentionally make it a negative 1.75 and hit return, and it's just going to move it down. So it's considered negative when it moves up and positive when it moves down from the 0 point. So it seems a little weird. There might be times when you want to do this, when you want to measure from a different corner of your artboard, and the bottom line is you can move that origin point of the ruler if you want to for exact precision, getting it where you want it. Okay, to reset our rulers, we go back up to that intersection point of the 2 rulers, that little black square, and we double click. That resets our 0 point to be the top left corner of an artboard like it always is. Click away from your guide to deselect it. It should go back to being that tealy color. And now that we have a guide in here, we want to lock it, meaning we don't want to accidentally grab it with our cursor and bump it around. We want it to stay locked at that 1.75 point. So over in your property panel where we have guides, we have some options to do. We can hide the guides, lock the guides, and hide our smart guides. So what we want to do is just that middle icon, click to lock the guides. Once we do that, we have our guides will not move.